He chose another woman and left her to face the world alone. Valentina Moretti, heir to the Moretti Empire, replaced Serena in a business-driven marriage arrangement. The announcement hit like a physical blow, crushing Serena's carefully structured future, and forcing her to confront a truth she had ignored for years. The man she loved had never truly valued her. 5 days before the wedding, Serena Whitlock stood in front of the mirror wearing 14 months of hand-stitched ivory silk. The dress was perfect. That was the cruel part. No longer fit her life. 3 hours earlier, in a quiet cafe on Alderman Street, Adrian Vale had looked across a small wooden table and said, "I'm calling it off." No tremble in his voice, no regret in his eyes, just a billionaire ending an engagement as if he were canceling a meeting. Now Serena stood alone in her apartment, staring at the gown hanging on her door, while the keys in her hand slipped and struck the counter with a sharp metallic sound. For a long moment she could not move. Her eyes fell to the thin crack in the kitchen tile, the one she had noticed 8 months ago and kept promising to repair before the wedding. Back then, it had seemed small. Now it looked like a warning she had refused to read. Adrian had chosen everything: the cathedral, the lilies, the silver cars, even the silk that now shimmered like a ghost in the afternoon light. Serena had told herself his attention was love, but love did not need to measure, approve, and arrange every corner of another person's life. Control could look elegant from the outside. Inside, it still felt like a locked room. She sank into the wooden chair, still wearing the pale blue dress she had picked, because Adrian once said it softened her face. The thought made her stomach twist. He had sent the message the night before. Alderman Street. 2 p.m. We need to talk. She had read it 3 times. Hoping it was wedding stress, hoping he needed reassurance, hoping he was still the man. She had spent 3 years trying to understand. She had arrived early. She had smiled when the waiter brought water. She had rehearsed a tender question in her head. But Adrian had not come to be comforted. He had come to erase her. Memory returned with the cruel precision of a film she could not stop watching. At exactly 2 o'clock, Adrian walked in wearing a charcoal suit, his expression unreadable. He did not kiss her cheek. He did not reach for her hand. He sat across from her, folded his fingers, and said, "I'm calling off the wedding." Serena stared at him, certain she had misheard. "What?" she whispered. He repeated it slowly, almost politely. "The wedding is over." Outside, traffic moved along the wet street. Inside, the air had gone so thin she could barely breathe. He looked calm enough to order coffee. She felt her whole future collapse without making a sound. "Why?" Serena asked, digging her nails into her palms beneath the table. She refused to cry in front of him. Adrian's gaze did not waver. "I am marrying Valentina Moretti." The name landed between them like a weapon. Valentina Moretti was not just another woman. She was the daughter of the family that controlled the Eastern Docks. Women photographed in silk gowns at charity galas and whispered about in back rooms where powerful men lowered their voices. Serena's lips parted, but nothing came out at first. Then she said, "That is a marriage. That's a merger." Adrian's face did not change. "It's necessary," he said. Necessary. The word made Serena laugh once, a small broken sound. "So 3 years with me was what? Practice?" For a second, something almost human crossed Adrian's eyes, but it disappeared before she could name it. "You knew what my world was," he said. "No," she answered, her voice low. "I knew what you let me see." She thought of London, the design partnership she had turned down, because he said distance would hurt them. She thought of the clients she had stopped calling, the competitions she had ignored, the smaller life she had accepted because he called it loyalty. Adrian looked at all of that sacrifice and treated it like bad timing. Serena leaned forward, desperate for one honest sentence. "Where was I supposed to fit in this future of yours?" Adrian paused. "Not long. Just long enough to make the answer crueler. You were never enough for my future." The words were quiet, but they cut cleaner than shouting ever could. Serena felt her throat close. She wanted to slap him. She wanted to beg him to take it back. Instead, she studied the perfect line of his suit, the empty steadiness of his face, and understood that the man across from her had already buried the life they were supposed to build. She stood slowly, because sitting there 1 second longer felt like dying with her eyes open. Adrian slid a thick white envelope across the table. "This will cover the inconvenience." Serena stared at it. For 1 stunned second, she thought he could not possibly mean money. Then she saw that he did. Something inside her went cold. "Take that," she said, "and leave it where you found your conscience." His jaw tightened. "Serena." "No," she said. "You don't get to say my name, like you still have the right," and walked away without looking back. For nearly 40 minutes, she remained at the table, untouched water in front of her, the envelope lying there like proof that some men could put a price on anything except their own shame. By the time she reached her apartment, The city felt unfamiliar, as if she had walked home through someone else's life. She passed the ivory gown without touching it and called Mara, her closest friend. Mara answered with a bright, excited voice. "Tell me you finally approved the seating chart." Serena closed her eyes. "There's no wedding." Silence, then Mara's voice changed completely. "Where are you?" "Home." "Lock the door." "I am coming." Serena tried to explain, but the words came out unevenly. Adrian was marrying Valentina. The Moretti family, the Eastern Docks, the Alliance, and the sentence that would not stop echoing. "You were never enough for my future." After the call ended, Serena finally broke. Not beautifully, not quietly. She bent over the counter with both hands gripping the edge and sobbed so hard her chest hurt. The microwave clock glowed green in the dark kitchen. 11 minutes passed. And 12. The tears slowed, then stopped in a way that felt almost unnatural. She lifted her head and saw her reflection in the black window. Mascara streaked, eyes swollen, mouth trembling. But there was something else there too, something small and stubborn beneath the wreckage. She turned away from the gown and looked again at the crack in the tile. Tomorrow, she thought, I fix something. Maybe not everything, but something. Mara arrived 20 minutes later with a bottle of dark wine and the kind of rage only a best friend can carry for you. She did not start with advice. She pulled Serena into her arms and held her until Serena's breathing steadied. Then they sat at the kitchen table, and Serena told her everything. The cafe, the envelope, Valentina Moretti, the final sentence. Mara listened without interrupting, but her face hardened with every detail. "He didn't end a relationship," Mara said at last. "He disposed of an asset." Serena flinched because the word was too accurate. For 3 years, Adrian had praised her gentleness, her patience, her willingness to adapt. Now she understood. Those were the qualities he had found easiest to use. And Serena admitted she had left the envelope on the table. Mara nodded with fierce approval. "Good. He wanted a receipt. You didn't give him one." Serena laughed weakly, then pressed both hands around her glass. The practical damage was already coming for her. 300 guests, vendors, newspapers, families who loved gossip more than truth. Adrian's people would be shaping the public story before morning. And by sunrise, Serena would become the abandoned bride in every whisper. Mara leaned closer. "Then we move before they do. Not for him, for you." Serena looked toward the gown, its ivory folds glowing in the dim room. For the first time that day, she did not feel only grief. She felt anger, clear, sharp, useful anger. Midnight, the wedding that had taken 14 months to build, was already being dismantled by people who spoke in polished voices and used words like unfortunate, mutual, and private matter. Serena knew none of those words belonged to her. She had not agreed to this. She had been replaced. Next morning, the tabloids made it worse. Her old engagement photo appeared beside a newer shot of Adrian and Valentina leaving a private club, her hand tucked neatly into his arm. The headline called it a sudden bride swap. Serena stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then she turned the phone face down. If strangers wanted a spectacle, she would not feed them her tears for breakfast. That afternoon, she drove to a storage unit on the south side of the city, a place she had not visited in 2 years. The metal door screamed when she pulled it open. Dust floated in the narrow light. Inside were the pieces of her old life. Rolled blueprints, sketchbooks, a battered lamp, a wooden drafting table wrapped in moving blankets. Serena stood in the doorway, with her keys in her hand, and felt shame rise in her throat. She had not lost these things. She had put them away, one compromise at a time. Adrian had never ordered her to stop designing. He had done something more patient. He had made her feel small for wanting it. The work of hauling the table out was ugly and physical. Boxes scraped her hands. A sharp metal edge cut her forearm, leaving a red line across her skin. She barely noticed. The pain grounded her. It reminded her she was still here, still strong enough to lift what belonged to her. By the time she loaded the last case of old drawings into the car, her dress was dusty and her shoulders ached. She looked at the storage unit one last time. It no longer felt like a grave. It felt like a place she had come back from. "You don't get this part of me too," she whispered, though Adrian was nowhere near enough to hear it. Back in the apartment, Serena pushed aside Adrian's expensive, lifeless decor. He had always liked empty spaces, cold surfaces, rooms that looked untouched by human need. She dragged the drafting table near the window, set the lamp at the left corner, and wiped dust from the wood until the grain showed through. When her fingers closed around a pencil, her throat tightened. It had been too long. At first, the line on the paper shook, then another followed, then another. Slowly, her hand remembered what her heart had tried to forget. She was not designing for a client, a man, or a life that no longer existed. She was drawing because she could still imagine something better. For 4 hours, the world outside disappeared. She sketched a lobby that opened like a breath, a roof garden wrapped in glass, a public stare that turned sunlight into movement. The work did not heal her all at once. Nothing did. But it gave the pain somewhere to go. Near midnight, Mara texted, "Still alive." Serena took a photo of the half-finished page and sent it back. Mara replied with 3 words, "There she is." Serena smiled for the first time since the cafe. It was small and tired, but real. She looked at the page again, at the sharpness of her own lines, and realized Adrian had not taken her talent. He had only convinced her to stop using it. At 3:15 in the morning, her phone lit up beside the bed. Adrian. Serena watched it vibrate across the nightstand, pulse pounding in her throat. She did not answer. A few minutes later, a message appeared. She left it unread until morning, when she sat in the kitchen with bitter black coffee and forced herself to look. "I am sorry about the timing. There was pressure you could understand. I never wanted to hurt you like this." Serena read it twice, searching for an apology that actually existed. There was none. He was sorry for the timing, not the betrayal. Sorry that the knife had been inconveniently sharp. She deleted the message without replying. She did not block him, not because she wanted him back, and not because she feared him. Blocking him felt too much like giving him another dramatic ending. Silence was cleaner. By noon, she had opened old contacts, trade journals, and industry listings. One name kept appearing in connection with the biggest development in the city, Marcus Holloway, lead backer of the Meridian project, a 22-story redevelopment that everyone said would reshape the northern waterfront. Adrian had once told her projects like that were political swamps, beneath her talent and bad for their future. Serena stared at the submission portal, then at the sketches on her table. "Not our future," she said quietly. "Mine." Then she began writing the pitch. The proposal took all afternoon and half the evening. Serena wrote with a kind of controlled fury, cutting every weak sentence, letting the work speak for itself. She did not mention Adrian. She did not ask for sympathy. She showed them what the Meridian building could become. Not another cold luxury tower, but a place where steel, brick, and light could make the city feel human again. Her finger hovered over send for almost a full minute. Fear whispered that she was too late, too damaged, too out of practice. Then she remembered Adrian's voice at the cafe. "You were never enough for my future." Serena smiled without warmth. "Good," she said. "I am done fitting into it." She hit send. The next 3 weeks were not a clean montage. Some mornings she woke with her stomach twisted in knots. Some nights she checked the tabloids and regretted it instantly. Strangers had opinions about her face, her dress, her failure, her supposed ambition. Adrian's people had done their work well. The public story made him look decisive and made her look fragile. But each time the noise became too loud, Serena returned to the drafting table. She called old mentors. She apologized to one former client for disappearing. She took on a small consultation, just to remind herself she could still walk into a room as a professional. Every day, the humiliation lost a little more ground to work. On a gray Tuesday afternoon, Holloway Development called. Serena almost let it go to voicemail, because the number was unfamiliar. The woman on the line spoke briskly. "Miss Whitlock, we reviewed your Meridian concept. Mr. Holloway would like to meet." Serena gripped the edge of the table. "When?" "Friday, 9 a.m. Bring everything." After the call ended, she stood still, afraid that if she moved too quickly the moment might break. Then she laughed, a sharp breathless sound, and called Mara. Mara screamed so loudly Serena had to pull the phone away from her ear. For the first time since Adrian left, the future did not look like an empty room. It looked like a door beginning to open. Friday morning, Serena entered the 14th floor of Holloway Development, with her portfolio pressed against her chest. She had slept maybe 2 hours, but exhaustion could not dull the current running through her. The boardroom was wide, clean, and intimidating, with a wall of windows looking over the river. She expected Marcus Holloway, the name attached to every public statement about the project. Instead, a man stood by the window with a coffee cup in one hand, and no trace of corporate theater in his posture. He was tall, around 38, with dark hair brushed back by the wind, and eyes that seemed to notice everything without demanding attention. He turned when she entered. "Serena Whitlock." "Yes," she said. "I was told I'd be meeting Mr. Holloway." The man crossed the room and offered his hand. "Marcus is delayed. Roman Duca." His grip was firm, warm, and unhurried. Serena recognized the name only after hearing it aloud. Roman Duca owned the enterprise behind Holloway Development, though he rarely appeared in public campaigns. He had built his fortune through old industrial conversions, the kind critics called stubborn, expensive, and strangely beautiful. "So you own the room," Serena said before she could stop herself. Roman's mouth curved. "Only on paper. The building owns the room. We're all just trying not to ruin it." That answer caught her off guard. Adrian would have used the moment to impress her. Roman used it to point back to the work. Serena unrolled her blueprints across the mahogany table. Roman leaned in and studied the pencil work in silence. Not the kind of silence that judged, the kind that listened. His finger stopped at the transition between the interior lounge and the terrace. Everyone else put a bar here, he said. Because everyone else saw a dead corner, Serena answered. It isn't dead. It sets a threshold. If people feel trapped between inside and outside, the whole level fails. Roman looked up. You're not decorating the space. No, she said. I am giving it a pulse. For the first time in years, Serena said something bold about her own work and did not immediately apologize for it. For 40 minutes, they forgot the scheduled meeting. Roman asked sharp questions. Serena pushed back. He challenged the roofline. She defended it. She criticized the lobby. He listened instead of bristling. By the time Marcus Holloway arrived with 2 assistants and a stack of formal notes, the real conversation had already happened. Serena saw Roman close her portfolio with careful hands, as if the pages mattered. On the drive home, she stopped at a red light and stared at those same pages on the passenger seat. The meeting had not felt like rescue. It had felt better than that. Mission. Someone had looked at her work without looking through her. That evening, her phone vibrated while she sat in the parking garage of her apartment building. Unknown number. She opened the message. Roman Duca, walk the Meridian site with me Thursday. The screen glowed in the dark car. Serena read it twice, then a third time. A month ago, an invitation from a powerful man would have made her wonder what he wanted from her. This felt different. He wanted her eyes on the building, her mind in the work. Still, old wounds had reflexes. Adrian's voice stirred in the back of her head, cool and certain, telling her she was never enough. Serena inhaled slowly and typed Thursday works. Then she set the phone down before doubt could edit her answer. The next morning, while making coffee, Serena noticed a dark sedan across the street. It idled too long, its windows tinted, its engine too quiet. 3 years beside Adrian had taught her to notice these things. She knew the difference between a parked car and a watcher. When she stepped toward the window, the sedan rolled away. On Wednesday, a different black car appeared near the corner. Same stillness, same wrong feeling. Serena told herself not to panic, but her hand shook as she poured coffee. She had rebuilt one corner of her life, and already the past had found the address. Adrian did not like losing control. Apparently, he liked being ignored even less. At 8 o'clock, Serena called Mara. There's a car outside. Mara went quiet. How long? Yesterday and today. Different car. Same position. Adrian. I don't know. But they both knew what that meant. Adrian Vale had men who could follow a person for weeks without leaving a fingerprint. Mara told her not to answer C messages, not to walk alone at night, and not to let fear drag her back into conversation with him. He wants proof he can still affect you, Mara said. Serena looked at the empty street where the sedan had been. Then he can watch me go to work. On Thursday, she put on boots, took her portfolio, and drove to the Meridian site. Morning, like a half-finished promise. Concrete columns, steel braces, plastic sheeting snapping in the wind. Roman waited near the gate with Greta, his project manager, a woman with short gray hair, tired eyes, and the kind of competence that made people move faster around her. Miss Whitlock, Roman said. Serena lifted an eyebrow. After 40 minutes of arguing over a terrace, I think we survived surnames. Roman laughed softly. Serena, then. Greta handed her a hard hat. Not to fall through anything, Serena. The dry humor steadied her. It was the first workplace in years where no one treated her like an accessory to someone else's power. Inside the structure, nothing was hidden. No polished stone, no expensive lighting, just the bones of a building open to the sky. Serena loved it immediately. She walked slowly, letting the noise settle around her. Drills, footsteps, wind, distant traffic. Roman did not rush her. He did not fill the silence with numbers meant to impress. At a corner near the future lobby, Serena stopped. This setback is wrong. Greta looked at the drawings. 14 feet. It needs a covered transition zone. Otherwise, the street will swallow the entrance. Roman came to stand beside her. You reassure. Serena looked up at the raw concrete frame. Completely. He studied the space, then nodded. Show me. Serena opened her sketchbook and drew quickly, one hand holding the page against the wind. A shallow canopy, recessed lighting, a softer passage between traffic and lobby. Roman leaned closer, close enough that she felt the warmth of him in the cold air, but he kept his focus on the lines. That works, he said. Greta looked between them and gave a short, approving nod. It solves the drainage issue, too. Serena kept drawing, adding a material note beside the margin. She had expected to feel nervous correcting a major design point on site. Instead, she felt awake. The building was speaking in flaws and possibilities, and for the first time in years, she trusted herself enough to answer. They climbed to the 14th floor, where the wind hit so hard it brought tears to Serena's eyes. From there, the river cut through the city like dark glass. Roman stood beside her, hands in his coat pockets. "What do you hear?" he asked. It was an odd question, but he did not say it mockingly. Serena looked at the empty slab, the exposed steel, the gray sweep of sky. "It wants warmth," she said. "Everything around it is hard. If the inside is hard too, people will feel judged before they sit down." Roman was quiet for a moment. "My first contractor used to say, buildings tell you what they need if you stop showing off long enough to listen." Serena smiled despite herself. Later, they sat in a small diner 2 blocks from the site, drinking coffee strong enough to strip paint. Greta had left for a call, and the silence between Roman and Serena felt less professional than before, though neither of them named it. He asked how long she had been in design. "Since 22, she said. "Old buildings at first. Forgotten theaters, factories, civic spaces no one wanted to save." "What changed?" The question was gentle, but it landed hard. Serena turned the cup between her hands. "I let someone convince me that ambition was selfish." Roman did not rush to comfort her. He simply said that person was wrong. Somehow the plainness of it made her eyes sting. On the drive home, the orange light of sunset spread across the windshield, and Serena kept replaying that sentence. That person was wrong. Not dramatic, not flattering, just true. It unsettled her more than praise would have, but the warmth faded as soon as she turned onto her street. The black sedan was gone, and the absence felt worse than its presence. Upstairs at 9:15, Adrian called. She let it ring. At 9:22, he called again. By 9:40, the phone had lit up 4 times. Serena stood in the kitchen, one hand against the counter, and understood that silence alone would not make him stop. She answered the next call, but said nothing. Adrian spoke first. "Serena." His voice still had the power to bruise old places inside her, and she hated that. "What do you want?" she asked. He exhaled as if he had prepared a speech and already disliked how it sounded. "I wanted to explain." "You explained enough at Alderman Street. I was under pressure." Serena laughed once. "You told me I was never enough for your future. That wasn't tea pressure. That was a choice." A pause, then Adrian said softer, "I needed you to hate me." The old Serena might have searched for pain beneath that sentence. This Serena heard manipulation trying on a wounded voice. "Are you having me followed?" she asked. The silence on the line answered before he did. "I was concerned. Don't insult me." His breath sharpened. "You re-walking into things you don't understand." "Roman Duca." Serena said his name deliberately. Adrian's quiet changed. There it was. Jealousy, control, and something darker braided together. "Stay away from him," Adrian said. "That sounds less like concern and more like panic. You don't know who he's crossed." "And you do." Another silence. Then he whispered, "I made a mistake." Serena looked across the kitchen at her drafting table, at the half-finished lines waiting beneath the lamp. "Yes," she said. "You did, but it's not my job to fix it." Adrian's voice cracked, but not enough to soften her. "The Moretti arrangement is complicated." "You mean your engagement," she said. "Or the business deal wearing her ring. Valentina isn't what you think." Serena closed her eyes. There it was again, secrets, warnings, half-truths offered like gifts. "Then be honest for once. Why are your people outside my building?" "Deny it this time." "Because I needed to know you were safe." "No," Serena said. "You needed to know whether I was still yours to monitor." The line went quiet. For the first time, Adrian had no elegant answer. Serena ended the call before he could find one. Afterward, the kitchen seemed too still. Serena stood under the weak light, phone in hand, heart hammering. He knew about Roman. He knew about the site. He knew enough to make every new step feel watched. For a few minutes, fear pressed hard against her ribs. Then anger came back, cleaner than fear. Adrian had discarded her, but he still expected access to the rooms of her life. He still believed her movement required his permission. Serena set the phone down, turned on the drafting lamp, and forced herself to work. The first line came out too heavy. The second steadied. By Friday night, she and Roman were deep in revisions, and Serena had no room left for ghosts. Roman noticed the exhaustion before she mentioned it. They were in the temporary site office, blueprints spread across a folding table, rain tapping against the metal roof. "You haven't slept," he said. "I've slept." That wasn't a yes. Serena almost smiled. "You ask a lot of questions for a man who claims to listen to buildings." He capped his pen. "Buildings don't lie. People do." The words hung between them. She told him then, not everything but enough. Adrian's calls, the cars, the warning to stay away from Roman. His expression did not change dramatically. That frightened her more than surprise would have. It was the stillness of a man recognizing a familiar threat. "Adrian Vale likes pressure," Roman said quietly. "He applies it until people move where he wants them." Serena folded her arms. "You know him. I know of him. And I know the Moretti family better than I want to." That was the first time Roman let the name sit in the room, without pretending it was only gossip. He explained that 4 years earlier, he had challenged an investment group tied to the Port District. The fight had gone quiet, but not because everyone had forgiven him. The Morettis don't forget territory, he said. Serena felt the pieces begin to shift. Adrian's marriage to Valentina was not just betrayal. It was a door opening between two dangerous worlds. That night, Roman suggested dinner after a brutal design session. Only if you stop pretending diner coffee counts as a meal, Serena said. They found a small Italian place with checkered cloths, warm bread, and low yellow light. For a while, they talked only about cities. Why some streets made people linger, and others made them hurry. Why luxury towers could feel lonelier than old warehouses. Why public space mattered, even when investors did not understand it. Roman did not dominate the conversation. He argued, listened, admitted when she was right, and then grew wary of it. Peace had become unfamiliar enough to feel suspicious. Halfway through dinner, Roman set down his glass. You used to be with Adrian Vale. It was not an accusation. That helped. Serena nodded. I was engaged to him until he traded me for a dockside alliance. Roman's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. Knew before I hired you. Serena's hand stilled. Then why bring me in? Because your work was the strongest submission. And because I wanted you to know someone in this city could look at your name and see talent before scandal. The directness left her speechless. Adrian had used praise like a leash. Roman offered respect, and then gave it space to breathe. After dinner, Roman walked her to the parking garage. The air between them had changed, though both kept their hands to themselves. Plans by Thursday, he asked. If you stop changing structural priorities every hour, I call that collaboration. I call it harassment with good lighting. And the sound warmed something in her chest. But the moment broke in the elevator up to her apartment. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. Stay away from him. Before she could breathe, another message arrived. He knows about Duca. This was not Adrian's wounded drama. The words were too cold, too precise. Serena stared at the screen as the elevator doors opened to her empty hallway. Inside her apartment, Serena locked the door twice and stood in the dark, with the phone still glowing in her hand. The messages did not read like jealousy. They read like surveillance notes. Stay away from him. He knows about Duca. She saved the number as unknown Thursday, then called Mara. Mara answered on the second ring. Tell me this is a normal emergency. I don't think we have those anymore. Serena sent screenshots. Mara swore softly. Do not search anything tonight. Serena looked at her laptop, already open on the table. I'm absolutely going to search. That is the opposite of what I said. I know. Then Serena began digging. Roman's public record looked almost aggressively clean. Industrial conversions, private financing, a few arguments with city boards, no scandals that stuck. But buried in an 8-month-old business journal was a short article about a hostile land dispute in the Port District. The losing bidder had been represented by a shell company tied to Moretti Capital Partners. Serena stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Adrian was marrying into that family. Roman had challenged their territory. Now she was working with Roman on a project that touched land they wanted. Mara called again at midnight. Did you find something? Yes, Serena said. And I think Adrian may not be the only problem. The next morning, Mara arrived with coffee and a face tight with worry. Messages. The old bidding history. Mara read in silence. This is to jealous ex situation anymore. No. This is organized. Serena nodded, though the word made her stomach cold. The hardest part was not knowing whether the anonymous sender was warning her or steering her. If Adrian wanted to scare her away from Roman, the messages served him perfectly. If someone inside the Moretti circle wanted to expose a larger move, ignoring the warning could be disastrous. Serena rubbed both hands over her face. Then she picked up the phone. I'm telling Roman. Roman answered almost at once. Serena, we need to meet. Not at the office. A pause. He heard enough in her voice not to ask for details. The site. Second floor. 30 minutes. When she arrived, the morning was gray and bitterly cold. Roman stood near the temporary stairs, speaking with 2 engineers. Serena waited until he saw her face. He dismissed them immediately. She gave him the facts without drama. The texts, the Moretti connection, the Port District article, Adrian's surveillance, the timing. Roman listened without interrupting. By the end, his face had gone quiet in a way that made the unfinished building feel suddenly smaller around them. How long has the car been outside your building? He asked, not whether she was sure. Misunderstood. How long? 2 days that I saw. Maybe more. Roman turned toward the open side of the floor, jaw working once. Adrian is either using you to pressure me, or the Morettis are using both of you to reopen something I walked away from. You walked away. He nodded. 8 months ago. The Port District parcel was worth a blood feud. Serena looked at him sharply. Blood feud. Legal blood, financial blood, sometimes worse. The Morettis are patient. They don't always strike when they re-angry. They strike when paperwork can do the most damage. Roman told her the full shape of the board. Years ago, when he was still taking risks he would not take now, he had accepted investment money through a chain of companies that later traced back to people he wanted nothing to do with. The moment he discovered it, He cut the ties and disclosed the issue to his lenders. Legally, he was clean. Publicly, the truth could still be twisted into poison. Adrian knows, Serena asked. If he is close to Valentina Moretti, he can find out. The wind moved through the concrete skeleton. Serena felt anger rise again. Adrian had not just broken her heart. He had dragged her new work into the shadow of his ambition. You should remove me from the project, Serena said, hating the words even as she forced them out. Roman looked at her as if she had handed him something ugly. No, I am serious. If this is because of me, it is because of you. It's because men like Adrian think people are handles they can pull. His voice remained low, but there was iron in it now. If we let them isolate you, they win the first round without filing a single page. Serena studied him, searching for the catch, the hidden cost, the part where he would ask her to become smaller for safety. Never came. He only said, keep working, and tell me everything. For 4 days, nothing happened. No sedan, no messages, no calls from Adrian. The quiet should have comforted Serena, but instead it stretched tight around her nerves. She threw herself into the Meridian plans with almost brutal focus. Roman did the same. Together, they solved the lobby transition, reworked the terrace, and found a way to make the building feel less like a monument to money, more like a place people might actually want to enter. On Friday, after a breakthrough that left both of them exhausted, Roman looked over the final sketch and said, that's it. Serena felt pride move through her so cleanly it almost hurt. She had missed this. She had missed herself. That evening, over dinner, Serena told Roman about the London project she had abandoned 2.5 years earlier. Adrian said it would pull us apart, she said. I believed him. Roman's expression softened. The East London Cultural Complex. Serena looked up. You know it. It opened 8 months ago. Won 4 major design awards. The words hit harder than she expected. She had avoided every article, every photo, every mention, because looking at it meant looking at the future she had surrendered. Roman did not offer pity. He did something better. He let the loss exist without trying to decorate it. I'm sorry, he said. Serena nodded, unable to speak for a moment. On Tuesday morning at 7:45, Greta called. Her voice was flat and too controlled. Get to the site now. Don't call Roman first. Serena was there in 35 minutes. Greta waited near the wire fence, holding a thick legal folder with both hands. This arrived an hour ago. Inside was a lawsuit filed by Alderman Street Holdings. Serena read the name twice. Alderman Street, the cafe where Adrian had ended her engagement. The complaint accused Roman's team of illegal influence in securing permits, and demanded an immediate freeze on the Meridian project. Serena felt the paper tremble in her hands. This was not a warning anymore. This was a strike. Greta explained the numbers without softening them. A 6-month freeze would scare lenders. A full year could cost $8 to $12 million and damage Roman's credibility across the city. Serena turned the pages, scanning dates, signatures, shell company registrations. One detail made her blood go cold. Alderman Street Holdings had been created 11 days earlier, 4 days after Serena first walked the Meridian site with Roman. Adrian had dressed his revenge in legal paper and filed it through a company named after the place where he had humiliated her. Greta watched her face. Roman knows now, she said. His lawyer called him at 6. Serena looked toward the concrete frame of the building. The project suddenly felt like a living thing under attack. Roman arrived 12 minutes later, coat unbuttoned, phone still in his hand. His face was composed, but Serena saw the anger beneath it. My legal team has documentation, he said. The claims are smoke. Do they need to win? Serena asked. He did not answer immediately. That was answer enough. Adrian did not need a court victory. He needed delay, doubt, lender panic. He needed Roman's project weakened and Serena's new beginning poisoned. Roman looked at the complaint, then at Serena. This is meant to make you feel responsible. She swallowed. Isn't it? No. It's meant to make you obedient. The word struck her harder than comfort would have. Her phone vibrated. Adrian, this time a text. I gave you time. A second message followed before she could react. Noon. Walk away from him or his backers learn what I know. Serena showed Roman the screen. For the first time since she had known him, color drained from his face. He stepped away to make a call, voice low and clipped. When he returned, the truth came out. 4 years ago, Roman had unknowingly accepted capital tied to a dirty network. He had discovered it, severed it, disclosed it, and rebuilt his financing honestly. Not need the whole truth. He only needed a distorted version, released at the right moment. Serena understood the trap with horrible clarity. Adrian had made her the price. If she walked away from Roman, the lawsuit would vanish. If she stayed, the project could suffer. Roman's name could be dragged through mud, and every whisper in the city would become another weapon. I can go back, she said quietly. Roman turned on her so fast the folder slipped in her hands. No, if that stops this, it doesn't stop anything. It teaches him the cage still works. His voice roughened. I will lose money before I watch you hand yourself back to a man who measures people like property. Serena stared at him, shaken by how quickly he had chosen her safety over his own balance sheet. Something settled in Serena then. Not calm exactly, clarity. She looked at the lawsuit, Adrian's text, the unfinished tower, Roman's tense face, and understood that running would not free her. It would only move the walls closer. Give me everything, she said. Roman blinked. What? Files, timelines, disclosures, permits, the shell company trail. Everything your lawyer has. Serena, he built this around my fear. That means I am the part he expects to break. Roman studied her for a long second. Then he nodded once and made another call. 12 minutes later, 47 documents landed in Serena's inbox. She sat alone in her car, reading with the focus of someone finding cracks in a structure built to crush her. As a designer, Serena knew grand structures rarely failed everywhere at once. They failed at weak points. Adrian's plan had 4. A shell company registered too late, a falsified timeline, communications that linked his assistant to a city planning contact, and security footage placing one of his men near the Meridian offices before the complaint was filed. By 11:20, Serena had mapped the attack. By 11:40, she was driving toward Adrian's glass tower. 2 years ago, she had helped him choose the conference table for his 32nd floor office. He said the dark mahogany made him look permanent. Now she was going back to show him how quickly permanence cracked under pressure. The lobby security guard, Carl, recognized her immediately. His face softened with something like sympathy, but he said only, "Miss Whitlock." Serena held his gaze. 32nd floor. He keyed the elevator without asking questions. In the mirrored cabin, Serena looked at herself. Winter coat still on, hair pulled back, eyes steady though her hands were cold. At the top, the receptionist rose in alarm. "Miss Whitlock, Mr. Vale is in a meeting." Serena did not slow down. "He has an audience." She pushed open the heavy conference doors. Adrian sat at the far end of the table with 2 lawyers, a city consultant, and Valentina Moretti beside him, elegant as a blade in a black dress. Adrian's eyes widened before he recovered. Valentina did not move. She looked Serena over with calm, diamond-sharp interest. But there was a faint bruise of exhaustion beneath her makeup, the kind no expensive powder could fully hide. A silver phone lay face down beside her hand. Still vibrating with a caller, she refused to answer. "This is private," Serena said. One lawyer stood. Adrian lifted a hand. "Leave us." The lawyers hesitated, then filed out. Valentina remained. Serena turned to her. "You too." Valentina rose slowly. As she passed Serena, she murmured, "He doesn't destroy because he feels deeply. He destroys because loose ends offend him." Her eyes flicked to Adrian, and for 1 second Serena saw fear hiding behind all that polish. When the door closed, Adrian gestured toward a leather chair. "Sit down." Serena set her phone on the table instead and started a 5-minute timer. "No." His jaw tightened. "You came here to save Duca. I came here to end this." She slid the first document across the table. Alderman Street Holdings was registered 11 days ago. Your assistant contacted the planning consultant 2 days before the filing. Your security contractor appears on footage outside Meridian before the complaint existed. Adrian glanced down, then back up. "You don't understand what you're re-looking at." "I understand fraud," Serena said. "And I understand men who hide tantrums inside paperwork." Adrian's composure cracked at the edges. "You think Roman Duca is innocent. This is not about his sainthood. It says about your crime." She laid out the timeline point by point, her voice level. He moved forward with the petition. She would take the documents to the ethics board, the planning commission, and every lender he had tried to scare. She would expose not only the fake complaint, but the hidden network behind it. "You wanted me afraid," she said. "You forgot I know how to read structures. Yours is weak." Adrian stared at her with a look she had never seen before. Not love, not anger, fear. Then he tried the softer voice, the one that had once made her doubt herself. "I said you weren't enough because I needed to leave." Serena felt the old wound flare, but she did not touch it. "No, you said it because cruelty was easier than courage. I was trapped. You chose power. I chose survival." Serena leaned closer. "And then you punished me for surviving without you." The silence that followed was worse than any confession. Adrian looked away first. "I wanted you to feel what I felt." "You felt the loss of control," Serena said, "not love." The timer on her phone reached 1 minute. She let it keep running. Adrian's shoulders lowered as if the performance had finally exhausted him. "Roman is good for you," he said almost bitterly. "You stand differently now." Serena did not answer. She would not thank him for noticing what he had tried to crush. "Withdraw the filings by 5, she said. "Every complaint, every contact, every threat. After that, you disappear from my life." He gave a faint, humorless laugh. "You always were enough, Serena. I was the one who couldn't stand beside it." The words landed, but they did not heal anything. They were late, and late truth still left damage behind. Serena picked up her phone, stopped the timer, and walked out before he could make his regret her burden. In the elevator, her hands began to shake so violently she had to press them against her coat. She had held herself together for exactly as long as necessary, By the time she reached the street, cold air hit her face and she realized she had been holding her breath. Roman texted news. She typed filings gone by 5. It's over. A reply came almost immediately. Stay where you are. 12 minutes later, his sedan pulled to the curb. Roman stepped out, took one look at her face, and did not ask for a report. He opened the passenger door. Get in. For 20 quiet minutes, they drove through the city while Serena's breathing slowly returned to normal. Roman already knew the filings had been withdrawn. His lawyers confirmed it before the sun went down, but he drove to the Meridian site instead of her apartment. The concrete skeleton rose in the fading light, stubborn and unfinished. Serena stared at it through the windshield. He admitted he lied, she said. About me not being enough. Roman turned off the engine. Do you believe him? I believe he meant it today. I also believe it changes nothing. Roman nodded. Good. The simplicity of that answer nearly undid her. He did not ask her to forgive quickly, to feel grateful, to turn pain into wisdom before it had finished bleeding. He let the truth stay complicated. They stood by the fence as the evening wind moved through the unfinished floors. Roman's hand brushed hers once, then stayed near, waiting. I know what it cost you to walk into that office, he said. Serena looked at him. I didn't do it only for the project. I know. His voice lowered. That S what frightens me. She almost laughed. You. Frightened, not of Adrian. He looked toward the building, then back at her. Of wanting something I didn't plan for. The honesty changed the air between them. Roman Duca, who could face lawsuits and crime families without blinking, suddenly looked uncertain because he was standing close to her, with nothing useful to hide behind. Serena's chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with the ache of being seen too clearly. What are you saying? She asked. Roman took a breath. That I have built half this city and never once cared whether a place felt like home to one person. When you stood inside that concrete frame and started talking about warmth, thresholds, light, and now I can look at the plans without seeing you in them. The words were not polished. That made them harder to dismiss. Serena reached for his hand before she could overthink it. His fingers closed around hers, steady and warm. For one fragile moment, the war around them went quiet. The moment shattered when Serena's phone buzzed. She glanced down and felt the blood leave her face. Woman read over her shoulder. Official notice from the Planning Commission. File NP2244. At first, Serena thought it was confirmation of Adrian's withdrawal. Then she saw the preview line. Third-party complaint, registered by Moretti Capital Partners at 3:47 p.m. Roman's hand released hers, not from rejection, but because his whole body shifted into battle. They never needed Adrian's filing, he said. Serena stared at the screen. Adrian had been the loud threat, the visible knife. Moretti's had been waiting behind him, patient enough to let him fail, before making their own move. By the time Roman finished his first call, his face had gone hard. The Moretti complaint attacked the land title of the northern parcel, claiming prior ownership through a forgotten transfer buried in old municipal records. It was a lie, but a precise one. Precise lies could freeze a project long enough to kill it. Serena's mind flashed back to Valentina in Adrian's conference room. The vibrating phone, the tired eyes, the warning whispered like contraband. It had not been simple pity. It had not been simple betrayal either. Roman looked up from his phone. They've been preparing this for 14 months. Serena felt the cold slide deeper, so Valentina knew. Maybe, Roman said. Maybe knowing wasn't the same as being free. The filing time, 3:47, had been deliberate. It was lodged while Serena was inside Adrian's office, focused on the wrong enemy. Valentina's exit, her whispered warning. The private meeting, all of it had kept Serena looking at Adrian, while Moretti attorneys moved 3 blocks away. Roman paced near the fence, voice low on another call. When he returned, he hesitated before speaking, and Serena noticed it immediately. What aren't you telling me? Roman eyes met hers, then moved away. There is one way to counter. 4 years ago, before walking away from the Port District bid, I filed a protective interest with the land registry. Serena stared at him. I knew this could come back. His silence answered. Roman's jaw tightened. I thought keeping it quiet protected the project, or protected you from having to explain it to me. The words were sharper than Serena intended, but she did not take them back. Roman absorbed the hit. Yes, he said. That single honest word hurt more than an excuse. I didn't want you pulled deeper into my past. You don't get to decide how much truth I can handle, Serena said. The wind cut between them. For the first time Roman looked less like the steady man who always knew the next move, and more like someone capable of making the same mistake as everyone else. Confusing protection with control. He nodded slowly. You rewrite. I'm sorry. No more withheld pieces. The counterattack was simple in theory and dangerous in practice. The protective filing could make the Moretti claim collapse, reviewed quickly, but an accelerated review required the signature of the lead designer attached to the current development package. Serena, If you sign, your name becomes part of the challenge, Roman said. The Morettis will see it within 24 hours. This time, he did not soften the danger or decide for her. That mattered. Serena thought of the storage unit, the dusty table, the 3 years she had spent letting men narrate her limits. Fear was there, but fear was no longer the loudest thing in the room. She took the pen. Where do I sign? By 7:45 that night, Serena's signature sat beneath Roman S. on the accelerated petition. Diane Mercer, Roman S. attorney, reviewed the packet with a calm that felt almost unnatural. The Moretti side will be notified by morning, she said. For 72 hours you are exposed. Legally protected, but not practically protected. Mara, listening on speaker, did not like any of it. Define practically. Diane paused. Pressure that does not arrive as paperwork. Serena looked at Roman. He looked back without trying to soften the danger. I'll stay with Mara, Serena said. And I keep working. Roman started to object, then stopped himself. Tell me what you need. It was a small correction, but Serena noticed. Mara met her at the apartment and helped her pack a bag in under 10 minutes. I hate this, Mara said, grabbing Serena's charger from the nightstand. No. I hate that you look calm. Serena folded a sweater. I am not calm. Your face is lying very convincingly. That made Serena smile, and for 1 second the fear loosened. She took the sketchbook from her drafting table last. As they reached the hallway, the lights flickered once, then went out. Mara froze. At the far end of the corridor, a stairwell door clicked shut. Serena's breath caught. On her apartment door, someone had taped a plain white card. 3 words were written in black ink. Stop building now. Mara grabbed Serena's wrist and pulled her back inside, locking the door with shaking hands. We are calling Roman and the police, Serena said, surprising herself with how steady she sounded. The building cameras later showed only a hooded figure, face hidden beneath a cap, moving with the calm of someone who had done this before. Roman arrived with security before midnight, anger burning behind his controlled expression. This is exactly why I didn't want you exposed, he said. Serena turned on him sharply. No, this is exactly why I needed the truth before I signed. He went silent. Then he said, you rewrite. No defense, no argument, just accountability. It made trusting him difficult in a more honest way. At Mara's guest room, sleep came in broken pieces. At 6:15 the next morning, Diane texted, petition submitted, registry receipt confirmed. By 9, Serena was in Roman S. office, reviewing design revisions while legal calls moved around her like weather. The 72-hour window had begun. Greta brought coffee and said nothing about the circles under Serena's eyes. Roman paced near the window, speaking to lenders, city contacts, and attorneys with controlled precision, but every so often his gaze returned to Serena, as if checking whether she would vanish. She did not. She adjusted the terrace span, corrected an elevation note, and answered an engineer's question with enough force that he stopped trying to talk over her. On the second day, the Morettis filed a petty objection, claiming Serena design quest was washield because her role had expanded after initial submission. Diane dismissed it as a stall tactic, but it still cost hours. Then a second warning arrived, not on Serena's phone this time, but through Greta. Someone had broken into the temporary site office before dawn. Nothing valuable was taken. Only Serena's marked-up lobby drawings were pulled from the cabinet, slashed once across the center, and left on the floor. Roman stared at the damaged paper, his face pale with fury. Serena crouched and touched the torn edge. They think paper is the work, she said. Good, let them keep misunderstanding me. On the third day at exactly 4:17, Serena's phone rang. Unknown number. Everyone in the office went still. Roman reached for his own phone, but Serena shook her head and answered. Serena Whitlock. Valentina Moretti's voice came through, cool and clear, but thinner than before. You have made this inconvenient. Serena stood slowly. That sounds like a compliment from your family. A faint breath, almost a laugh. It is not a threat. Then, what is it? Valentina was quiet long enough for the silence to sharpen. In the background, Serena heard a man's voice bark in Italian, then a door closing hard. Notice, Valentina said. The complaint is being withdrawn. Why? Serena asked. Valentina's answer came slowly. Because my father does not like public fights he cannot control. Your petition forced documents into the light that he prefers buried. Serena did not trust the answer, but she heard strain beneath Valentina's polish. You helped distract me at Adrian's office. Yes, the honesty landed harder than denial. Then why call me now? Valentina's voice changed slightly. Because I watched you stand in that room and refuse to beg. I have seen many people fold under men like Adrian. I was raised to call that weakness. I am beginning to think my family gave the wrong name to the wrong thing. Serena looked toward Roman, who was already signaling Diane. That does make us friends, Serena said. No, Valentina answered, but it makes us women who understand cages. For the first time, Serena did not hear a Mafia princess or a rival bride. She heard a woman speaking carefully, because someone might be listening. Are you safe? Serena asked before she could stop herself. Valentina went silent. When she spoke again, her voice was polished smooth. No Moretti woman is ever safe. Some of us are only useful. Then the line went dead. 40 minutes later, the official withdrawal arrived. The complaint was gone. The permit freeze was lifted. The bank released the next stage of funding before closing. For several minutes, no one in Roman S. office spoke. Greta exhaled so sharply it sounded like a laugh. I'm going to pretend I wasn't worried. Diane closed her folder. You were right to be worried. Roman turned to Serena. She was still looking at the email, barely blinking. It held, she said. He understood. Not only the petition, not only the legal strategy, the work held. The truth held. She held. Then Roman picked up the slash drawing from the table, the one the intruder had ruined, and placed it carefully beside her new version. I should have trusted you with all of it sooner, he said. Serena looked at him. Yes, you should have. He nodded. I wanted to make that mistake again. Late sunlight filled the office, turning the dust in the air gold. Serena traced the small scar on her forearm, the one from the storage unit. It had healed into a thin, pale line. She remembered dragging the drafting table out alone, angry and shaking, with no idea where the road would lead. Now the Meridian project lived. Adrian's filing was gone. The Morettis had retreated. Roman stood nearby, not claiming her victory, not trying to own the moment. Serena looked at him. Leaving Adrian wasn't just leaving a man, she said. It was putting down a weight I forgot I was carrying. Roman nodded. You look taller without it. She smiled. I feel taller. Serena made one thing clear before anything else could happen between them. I am not confusing rescue with love. Roman S. expression stayed open. Good. I mean it. I don't want to belong to another powerful man. I don't want to be managed, protected into silence, or praised only when I'm useful. Don't to be, he said. Stand beside me or argue with me. Leave the room if you need to. Build something I hate and then convince me I'm wrong. And if I ever start deciding for you again, call me on it before I have the chance to dress it up as concern. Serena felt the last of her defenses weaken, not because he was perfect, but because he was willing to be corrected. Roman told her then about his first building. A cheap 14-unit complex he had built at 26 with bad credit, borrowed tools, and more pride than sleep. I carried drywall because I couldn't afford enough crew, he said. The plumbing was a nightmare. The roof leaked twice. It was ugly. You loved it, Serena said. His smile was quiet, more than some towers with my name on them. Because I knew every inch of what it cost. She understood. He was not only talking about buildings. He was talking about anything built honestly, work, trust, love, the self after ruin. Things mattered differently when you had bled for them. And the Meridian building rose floor by floor. Serena visited the site every week, hard hat low over her brow, sketchbook tucked under one arm. She argued with engineers, corrected contractors, admitted mistakes when she made them, and won respect the slow way, by knowing the work. The tabloids moved on. Adrian S. name still appeared in business pages, but Serena stopped reading. Valentina was seen in Milan with someone her family disliked, then disappeared from the society pages entirely for 6 weeks. Mara called it suspicious. Serena called it survival, and hoped quietly that wherever Valentina had gone, she had found at least one unlocked door. Her relationship with Roman stayed private. No public announcement, no strategic photographs, no dramatic declarations for people who had not earned a place in the story. They shared late dinners, argued over materials, and learned each other in ordinary ways. He hated overcooked pasta. She forgot to charge her phone. He left notes in margins with brutal honesty. She answered them with red pencil and no mercy. And that made Serena trust it more. Easy had once been the surface of a cage. This had texture, disagreement, warmth, and room to breathe. The table became the heart of a real studio. One evening, a handwritten letter arrived from Adrian. Serena recognized the sharp slant of his handwriting before opening it. For a moment, the old ache stirred. Then she read the first lines: regret, loneliness, admiration, a promise never to contact her again after this final letter. The woman she had been 6 months earlier would have studied every word, searching for hidden meaning. The woman she was now folded the letter once and dropped it into a junk drawer, beneath old batteries and takeout menus. Mara, watching from the kitchen, lifted her wine glass. That was cold. Serena poured coffee. No, that was peaceful. Then she returned to the drafting table. Around that time, the city began whispering about Adrian S.'s broken alliance. His engagement to Valentina ended without ceremony. Moretti connections quietly withdrew from several of his ventures. Industry events he stood alone more often than before. Always polished, always controlled, always a little too still. Serena heard these things from other people, never from him. She did not celebrate. She simply noticed that the world had not ended because he no longer occupied it. One night, Roman found her working late beneath a sunk sketching a library inside an abandoned warehouse near the port district. The old Serena might have asked whether the idea was too risky. This Serena had already drawn 3 versions. Roman leaned over the plans, quiet for a long time. That district still has teeth, he said. Serena kept shading the elevation. I know, you want to build there anyway. Especially there. He looked at her, waiting. She set down the pencil. Everyone acts like ground remembers only violence. But buildings make claims too. Put a library where people expect a warning sign. And eventually children will remember the books before they remember the fear. Roman's expression changed, slowly and completely. He pulled up a chair. Show me the structure. Serena smiled. I thought you'd never ask. The port district, once a symbol of threat, had become the place where her boldest idea wanted to live. There was a problem, of course. Roman found it within 10 minutes. The warehouse foundations want to support a public crowd. Serena flipped open a second sketchbook. That's why the reading room does sit on them. She showed him the suspension concept. Reinforced base, steel supports. A glass-wrapped room hovering over the water like a lantern. Roman stared. You already solved this. I assumed you would object. I am objecting. Good. Object intelligently. He laughed, low and genuine. They spent the next 2 hours tearing the idea apart and rebuilding it stronger. By midnight, the coffee had gone cold, and the first real version of the library had begun to exist between them. After the plans were put away, Roman sat back and looked at Serena with steadiness that made the room feel suddenly quiet. There's something I need to ask. She noticed his hand move toward his jacket and froze. Not from fear, from recognition that life was about to cross another threshold. He pulled out a small ring, simple and beautiful, with no oversized stone meant to impress strangers. I know the timing is not perfect, he began. Serena reached across the table and touched his wrist. And don't make a speech to defend it. His mouth curved, nervous in a way she had never seen. You want me to ask? Her breath trembled. Yes. Roman opened his hand. The ring caught the warm lamplight. Marry me. Serena looked at him, and the last 6 months rushed through her at once. The cafe table, the envelope, the cracked tile, the storage unit dust. The first clean line on paper. The black sedans. The lawsuit. The torn drawing, the cold office where she had stopped letting Adrian define her. She had once worn a wedding dress that felt like a shroud. Now she sat in a room that smelled of coffee, paper, and work, with a man who had made mistakes and owned them. Her fingers shook when she took the ring, not with panic, with the weight of choosing freely. Yes, Serena said. The word came out soft but certain. Roman released a breath like he had been holding it for years. He slid the ring onto her finger and pressed her hand against his chest, where his heart beat steady beneath her palm. Cameras, no public stage, no strategic guest list, just one lamp, a half-finished library sketch, and 2 people who knew exactly what it cost to build something honest. Serena laughed once, overwhelmed, and Roman kissed her carefully, as if joy itself deserved respect. Outside, the city hummed on, unaware that her life had just changed again, this time without a knife hidden inside the promise. 7 months later, Serena walked down the aisle of an old industrial warehouse in the East District. She had spent 3 months restoring it herself, keeping the weathered brick, the rotha rubber, and the scars in the floorboards. Only 40 people sat beneath the rafters. No fake friends, no investors invited for appearances. No one there because their name looked useful on a seating chart. Mara stood near the front, already crying. Roman waited at the altar in a dark suit, his face open and unguarded. Serena wore the ivory dress Adrian had once chosen, not because she had forgotten what happened, because the silk had always belonged to her. The dress no longer felt like a shroud. It moved softly as she walked, catching the warm light from the high windows. Some people might have told her to burn it, sell it, hide it away. Serena had considered all of that. Then she realized Adrian had taken enough. He did not get the silk, too. Roman understood the weight of what she wore. She saw it in his eyes, not pity, not possession, but reverence for the woman who had reclaimed a symbol of public humiliation and turned it into a private victory. When Serena reached him, Roman whispered, "You breathtaking." She smiled through tears. I know. Mara made a choked sound that was half sob, half laugh. Their vows were unscripted. Roman spoke of foundations, not as a metaphor polished for guests, but as a truth he understood in his bones. I will not build over you, he said. I will build beside you. And when the ground shifts, I will tell you the truth, before I tell you it's fine. Serena's voice broke only once, when she promised to choose honesty even when fear made silence tempting. I want to shrink to be loved, she said. And I want to ask you to shrink either. The room stayed very still. These were not vows meant to sound pretty. They were promises made by people who had seen what lies could cost. Across the city, on the 32nd floor of a sterile glass tower, Adrian Vale sat alone with coffee gone cold in front of him. On paper, he had survived everything. He still had projects, money, contacts, and a name that opened doors. Industry magazine on his desk. and Adrian saw the headline before he could look away. Serena Whitlock Duca restores East District warehouse for private ceremony. Beneath it was a photograph of Serena in the ivory dress, standing beside Roman beneath warm rafters. Adrian did not ask for details. He already knew enough. Serena had not only married the man who saw her clearly, she had worn the dress he failed to ruin. 8 months later, the completed Meridian building opened beneath a sky full of stars. Serena stood on the rooftop terrace, watching people move through the space exactly as she had imagined, pausing at the threshold, gathering near the warm brick, leaning into corners that felt made for conversation. The building did not shout, it invited. Roman came up beside her, his shoulder brushing hers. "You were right about the lobby," he said. Serena glanced at him. "Only the lobby. Do not make me humble in public." And the sound disappeared into the night air. Below them the city moved on, unaware of all the battles hidden inside the walls that now looked effortless. Industry critic called the Meridian project a humane correction to luxury development. Another praised Serena Whitlock Duca's use of weathered steel and reclaimed brick as if she had appeared from nowhere. Serena read the review once, smiled, and returned to her Port District library plans. Recognition felt good, but it no longer fed the hollow place Adrian had once kept open in her. That place had been filled by work, friendship, love, and the stubborn act of showing up for herself. In her studio, the old cracked kitchen tile had finally been replaced. She kept the broken piece on a shelf above the drafting table, not as a wound, but as evidence. Some cracks warn you before the collapse. Some teach you where to rebuild. By the following spring, ground broke on the Port District Library. The site still carried its old reputation. Drivers slowed when they passed. Reporters asked whether Serena feared building where better-funded people had failed. She answered plainly, "I am not here to prove I'm fearless. I'm here to build something useful." Nearby, trying not to look too proud and failing completely, Mara arrived with coffee for everyone and told a nervous young intern, "Never underestimate a woman who has already survived the worst headline of her life." Serena overheard and shook her head, smiling. The warehouse frames stood ahead of them, rusted and stubborn, catching pale morning light over the river. The first morning on site, Serena walked the perimeter alone. Before the crew arrived, her boots crunched over gravel. Wind moved through the hollow iron beams with a low, mournful sound. She stood still and listened, ignored warnings because she wanted love to be true. Now she listened to everything. Buildings, silences, her own unease, her own desire. The warehouse did not ask to be polished into something false. It asked to be understood. Serena opened her sketchbook and drew the first adjustment of the day, shifting the entrance 10 feet toward the river. Behind her, Roman approached quietly, changing the plan already. "Improving it," she said. "Try to keep up." He laughed and came to stand beside her. His hand found hers, warm and calloused, familiar without claiming ownership. Across the water, cranes moved slowly against the morning sky. This district had once been treated like a map of threats and old debts. Serena saw reading rooms, public steps, children with library cards, elderly men sitting in sunlit corners, students arguing over tables they would one day think of as theirs. A building could not erase history, but it could give people a new place to stand. Roman looked at the sketch, then at the warehouse. "You really believe this can change how people remember the ground?" Serena squeezed his hand. "Yes, not all at once, but enough." News of the library spread quickly. Some praised the ambition. Others called it naive. A few old voices from Adrian's world suggested Serena had become reckless after marrying Roman Duca. Serena ignored most of it. "Give me the phone, Sophia." When a reporter asked whether the project was revenge against the people who had tried to stop her, she paused before answering. "No, revenge still gives them a room in your house. This is not for them." The answer ran in the paper the next morning. Adrian saw it, of course. He sat alone in his office, reading the line twice. For the first time, he understood that Serena was not trying to punish him. She had done something worse. She had moved beyond needing him to witness her. Months passed. Steel rose over the water. The suspended reading room took shape, daring and graceful, exactly as Serena had drawn it under the studio lamp. Young architects came to the site hoping to meet her. Some expected a dramatic survivor with sharp speeches ready. What they found was a woman in work boots arguing about load paths and sightlines. Someone generous with advice, but impatient with excuses. Serena liked that better. She did not want to become a symbol people, flattened into inspiration. She wanted to remain a builder. Symbols were easy to admire from a distance. Builders got mud on their clothes and solved the problem before lunch. At the library opening the following year, children ran across the public steps before any adult could stop them. Serena watched one little girl press both palms to the glass and stare down at the water, amazed. That was the moment Serena had designed for. Not the ribbon cutting, not the speeches, not the photograph with donors. The gasp, the wonder, the feeling that a place thought to be dangerous could hold light. A man in a dark coat stood half hidden beneath the awning. "Adrian," For 1 second their eyes met across the distance. Serena did not freeze. She did not smile for him. She simply turned back toward the children and continued the tour. By sunset, Serena stood outside with Romanes's hand in hers, and her old sketchbook tucked under one arm. The warehouse frame, once rusted and forgotten, now held light. The river moved quietly beneath it. She thought of the cafe, the white envelope, the cracked tile, the storage unit. The first line she drew after thinking she had lost herself. None of it had disappeared. It had become part of the foundation. Serena no longer wished to erase the past. She had learned to build with it. Behind her, somewhere in the thinning crowd, Adrian was already leaving. This time she did not watch him go. The future did not feel like something waiting to be approved. It felt like something already under construction.